Welcome to the Mindful Movement series with First Ascents. My name is Tara with Love Yoga, and my FD nickname is Sprinkles. And I got involved with First Ascents when I volunteered at a rock climbing program in Estes Park back in 2018. And I have taught yoga and mindfulness for them ever since. Today I am here with one of our healthcare worker alumni, and so she's going to introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Jamela Urban, and my First Ascents nickname was Yogi Bear. I got involved.
I love that.
I know, it's pretty fitting. I got involved with First Ascents a couple of years ago during COVID at one of the first Heroes Recharge programs. I'm a pharmacist in healthcare, and I was invited along to the Hero Recharge program in Florissant. It was a rock climbing and yoga kind of program. So
yeah, we did a lot of yoga on that one, which was awesome.
Yeah, it was so great.
And I think the first one that coming out of the pandemic too, so that was a special program for sure. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We are going to be learning about mindful balance for healthcare workers in this class. And so, what is balance? Balance is technically these two opposing forces that are going on in life, and we always find balance through the opposites. Oftentimes we want to continue doing the thing that's driving us out of balance. That's human nature. So if we're in movement, we technically want to stay in movement, but oftentimes need to ground down and slow down to come into balance. So this class is going to teach us a little bit about that. More on that later. But we think about balance too, like in the nature of if you're out on an adventure, you often need to have more rest afterwards, right? So if you've just gotten back from a First Ascents program, you may be feeling like you're on top of the world and it was amazing and you did so much activity, but you're really tired. And so allow yourself to come into rest. We have some classes that one of them is actually on rest and restoration, and we have a deep relaxation meditation you can access to do that. Also, just know that there's balance is knowing when to be strong and when to soften your body, when to work and when you need more play in life, having stress and then relaxing. So we're going to just notice through mindfulness. Mindfulness is simply being aware of how we're showing up, what's going on in the body, what's going on with how you feel, with the mind space, and then being able to work through that. When you are mindful and you're aware that you're showing up and feeling stressed, you're able to then complete the stress response. And so that is usually through some sort of mindful movement or mindful breathing. When we don't complete the stress response and we stay stuck in it, then that gets stuck in the body and it becomes like all this stored cortisol, which can then like affect the immune system and affect our well-being and what's going on in the mind. So I like to call that dysregulation. It means out of balance. It shows up as fatigue, irritation, lower immune function, feeling like you're just not yourself, low vitality, right? I'm sure you've felt that a few times in your life, right?
100%, yes.
And
especially the last couple of years.
Yes, and so I don't know if you want to speak to that, but as a healthcare worker, what are some things that show up for you that are difficult?
Yeah, so my schedule is really challenging. As I said, I'm a pharmacist in a hospital setting, and I kind of work all different areas in the hospital and various shifts. So the shift work can be really challenging, especially even this past week, going from graveyard overnight shifts because we're super short staffed, and then 28 hours later having to switch back to a 8 a.m. shift, and then, a 6 a.m. and then a 3 p.m. So it's like every other day is a different shift, and that's really, really hard on the body and, your sleep-wake cycle and cortisol. So
definitely.
Yeah, that's been really, really hard.
Yeah, so I mean, that will definitely bring you out of balance, I would think. And how do you prioritize self-care then?
Yeah, so, in the hospital, we're constantly kind of, giving care to everyone else and putting our needs and ourselves aside. Oftentimes I don't even get a break, but so it's really important to me that, on my days off, especially, I get out, into nature and into the mountains or the ocean or whatever it might be, to just kind of get away. And I really try to check myself with social media and my phone and those kinds of things as well. And then I'm fortunate enough to have a really strong yoga practice. And so I make sure that I do yoga or some kind of movement pretty much on a daily basis.
That's great. That's really good mindfulness that you know how to keep yourself in check even with all that variability in your schedule. I do know you go on a lot of adventures, so it's amazing too.
Keeps me going.
Yes. And I'm assuming that you know then how you feel when you're in balance versus out of balance. How does it feel when you're out of balance?
Yeah, so kind of like we were talking about, I feel like since I've been practicing yoga for so long, I kind of know when I'm, in a flow state and when things just kind of seem to be elevated and flowing along, and then I know when I'm not. And when I'm not, I just feel, I feel a little bit more irritable, I feel tired, just a little more drained, maybe less apt to, get out and climb a big mountain that I really want to climb, so.
Yeah. And then when you realize these things, you can work towards changing them, right? So hopefully this class is going to help us restore balance. It's going to be taught in two parts. It's part vinyasa, which is more intentional, mindful, fluid movement. So we'll be moving a little bit more quickly, kind of the way to get the wiggles out, especially if you're feeling like you can't settle down. Even though you might need to settle down, you might not quite be there yet. So we're going to start with that portion of the class, and then we're going to move into what's called Yin Yoga, which is you hold poses a little bit longer and you get into more of the deep connective tissues and the muscles, and that is a way of kind of surrendering, bringing your body into more stillness and deep stretches and a sense of grounding. And so you can always fast forward to halfway through this video and go straight to the Yin portion if you're feeling fatigued, and then you'll have a good 20 minutes or so of just nice grounded postures. And otherwise, we invite you to start with the vinyasa portion, and we'll go into movement first. Okay, let's get started, Yogi Bear. So we're going to start with closing down the eyes and just checking in with ourselves and noticing how we're showing up here. And you can be in a seated position or laying down for this, whatever's comfortable. And take a nice straight spine, lifting up to the crown of the head. And just notice what you're feeling physically. Any sort of tension you're holding. Any way that you can make yourself even just that little bit more comfortable right here and now. And then checking in with your breath. Allowing it to flow in and out nice and smooth. And take careful notice of whether your inhales or your exhales are longer. Very common for us to breathe more air in than we let out. But we want to have more of an equal exchange between that oxygen intake and the output of the carbon dioxide, more the waste from the body. So we're going to be coming into inhaling for the count of 4 and then exhaling for 4 to start. So we'll start with emptying out the breath and then inhaling for 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. And continue a few times just at that count and noticing whether it feels easy to count and inhale for 4, or maybe it feels like it's a stretch for you. But by regulating the amount of air in versus the air out, we start to bring our nervous system into balance. And I invite you to stay with this count of 4, so that if that felt comfortable for you, or maybe it's just starting to get there after a few rounds of breath, then stay with 4. But if you want to expand a little bit further, we'll start with the next exhale, emptying the breath, inhaling for 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then doing that a few more times and noticing how it feels in your body. So as we inhale, it's activating more of that sympathetic side or of the nervous system, and as we exhale, it's bringing the parasympathetic side online, which is more the rest and digest. Then just noticing how this breath feels for you. We'll have the option to take it one step further to a count of 6. Of course, staying with 4 or 5 if that was just starting to feel good. And then emptying out on the exhale. We'll inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhale, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then continuing about 3 more rounds, counting to yourself. And noticing the balancing effects that simply tapping into your breath can have on your body. And knowing that you can access this kind of breathing anytime, even when you're at work and things feel stressful, you don't have time to get to a yoga mat, you can always come back to your breath. And this becomes a tool for you to move through that stress response, to complete the cycle so that the cortisol doesn't get stuck in the body. And we'll start to open up the eyes, thinking of an intention for your practice. And it could be something just as simple as staying present with all that is. It could be trying to cultivate more peace, but just bringing something into mind, because you can come back to that throughout the practice. And we will move into hands and knees, tabletop position. It's up to you if you want to use the blanket. I'm going to be using it just to pad my knees, but you can move it to the side for now. And starting with some cat-cows, just to get the energy flowing. Inhaling, dropping the belly, gaze comes forward. Exhaling, pressing down, round the spine. And moving into a few rounds of these. And I like how you're already incorporating some organic movements too. So you can circle your hips, circle your head. You can do anything that feels good here. I don't know about you, Jamela, but whenever I find fluidity on my mat, I often feel more fluid in life too. It's just a way to sort of move through what's stuck. And so she's doing forearm stretch. You could also incorporate some wrist stretches. So doing whatever feels good here. And we'll start to move into, I'm going to come to puppy pose, and I invite you could start with puppy pose, or you could move into your downward dogs. We'll kind of get into stretching out the hamstrings. I like to start with bent knees. You can notice how she's pedaling out her feet, stretching into her calves. You can also be here, pulsing in puppy pose. I like to inhale and round the spine, exhaling to move into rinsing the shoulders. And taking a few mindful breaths wherever you're at. That extension into the shoulders is most important, more than keeping your legs straight. So doing what feels good in your body. And so from here, we're going to start to come forward into a high plank. I'm going to be in a modified plank, and then lower all the way down to the mat. And taking your hands towards your rib cage, elbows hug inward, press down into the toes, and inhale, we'll rise to a cobra. And staying low just to keep the back active, and lower down. Nice breathing. So moving with breath, inhaling, squeezing shoulder blades together, and exhale down. You could do another cobra, or you could actually come into upward dog. You could also bring your arms wide and roll into, this is more of a wide cobra. So beautiful. And notice how her legs are lifted. Heart is shining through. So if you're in upward dog, you want to have that space between the ground. Beautiful. And then come up into a downward dog. You can also be coming up to hands and knees here and doing some cat-cows. So I'll be showing the modified version, and Yogi Bear is going to show more what we call a Chaturanga, which is, let's go through it one more time. Inhaling, rolling forward into a high plank, and then lowering all the way down, and rolling up on the inhale to cobra. I'm just staying at cat-cow, and back to downward dog. Beautiful. There will be options to come into those chaturangas through the first part of this practice. And so from here, let's go ahead and come all the way to the top of the mat. And you can just take some mindful steps. There's no need to hop or handstand or anything crazy. Some of you at home that do that, maybe that's okay. And we're gonna start, yes, in a forward fold, releasing head and neck. And then just let your arms go. We'll inhale, slide your hands up your shins to a flat back and lengthen. And then exhale, release. Press down into your feet and roll all the way to standing. Arms are gonna sweep overhead on the inhale. Palms touch. Exhale, hands to your heart center. We'll again inhale, arms sweep wide and up. And then exhale, take a nice swan dive down to a forward fold. You can have bent knees here if hamstrings are tight. Release the head and neck. And then we'll inhale, slide the hands up the shins or to the thighs, lengthen the spine, flat back, exhale, fold. Root down and inhale, rise to standing. Maybe even smile as your palms touch. Exhale, hands to your heart. And then one more time, inhale, lifting up, just circulating that energy through and forward fold. We're gonna pause here and take ragdoll arms if that's comfortable for you. So I'm kind of grabbing onto elbows, or you could grab onto wrists. And we're releasing the head and neck. And this is one of Yogi Bear's favorites. We're gonna come up into sunflower. So as you inhale, you're going to start to circle up to the right. Arms are gonna come overhead. And if it gets tight up here, you can undo the arms a bit. And then we'll exhale down to the left. Finding that sense of release at the bottom, and then inhaling back up to the right. Pressing back into the elbows, opening the heart. Beautiful, and exhaling down. And we'll pause and go the other way. So inhaling up to the left. Arms rise overhead. Exhaling down to the right. And find that release before you circle back up. Be thinking of something that you're grateful for, smiling, and back down. Allowing your spine to release here, head and neck to release. I always find that having a bend in the knees maybe allows the spine to relax a little in the forward folds. And then we'll start to come back up and go ahead and find your downward dog from here. I'm just gonna come back to hands and knees. You can move through a chaturanga if that feels good to you. She's moving forward to high plank, lowering down, inhaling to cobra. Exhale, downward dog. And from here, go ahead and she's going to take a three-legged dog by inhaling her right leg up to the sky, squaring off the hips. You could even open your hip by stacking, bending the knee or keeping your leg straight. And then coming back to square and stepping through on an exhale to a runner's lunge. And so having that back knee lifted here. You can even rock forward and back a few times. Hands could be inside. We're actually going to do this in the Yin portion where we hold it a little longer later. We're going to rise from here to warrior two. So back heel is going to spin flat. You're going to rise on up. Always an option to take a grounded warrior two as well. So you could stay on your knees if this is more comfortable. Then as you're in warrior two, you're going to be pushing into the outer edge of the back foot, using that as your brake so that that front knee comes over the ankle. She has perfect alignment, of course, because she's our yogi bear. Lengthening through the fingertips and finding soft gaze. And we're gonna find some flow here too as well. So as you inhale, you may reach forward. Exhale, find a nice side body stretch, opening to reverse warrior. And then we'll inhale back, up, lengthening out. And then maybe coming back again to reverse your warrior. Then we'll inhale back up, warrior two, pausing, finding a few mindful breaths, feeling the burn. There's most likely something going on, but then finding also some softness. So you're rooted, strong legs, but you have soft shoulders. And then start to straighten your front leg, which you can do also if you're kneeling. We're gonna come into triangle, so you might even wanna bring that back heel in just about an inch. Reach forward, and then down. And so this is where you could have a block, you don't have to, but since half moon's next, I'm gonna place that there for you in case. And we're rotating these lower ribs up to the ceiling, really feeling that sense of alignment and reaching up through the fingertips, or sometimes it feels good to bring your arm over the ear, dropping your neck down and even moving side to side. So finding fluidity here. And from here, we'll start to come into half moon. So you can actually use the block if you'd like. And yep, she's floating on up to her half moon, beautiful. And finding this openness in the front, reaching up to the sky. And she's got all these beautiful angles going on. So kind of opening up the body, finding a sense of balance. This can also be done on your knee. So no worries if this is not your jam. You can drop that knee, kick out to the side. And from here, we'll take one more inhale, really lifting up and kicking out. And as you exhale, come down into warrior two. So back heel's gonna float back down and lengthen out. Good. Taking about another breath or two, finding that sense of alignment. And then we'll cartwheel the hands down and coming back into that runner's lunge. And we're gonna turn to the front of the mat. So coming into like a wide-legged forward fold. Releasing head and neck. And I always like here, there's a few options. You could come into these lunges like a skandasana, inhaling to center, exhaling. Or sometimes it just feels good to hang in a wide-legged forward fold. Other times it might feel good to take a gentle twist. So placing one hand down, lifting the other up. But I don't think twist feels super great to you, so you going for the forward fold. Just honoring your body and knowing what you need, right? And from here, go ahead and walk towards the back of your mat. And we're gonna be in that runner's lunge again. And I'm gonna go ahead and say, take a Chaturanga, move through your vinyasa, so you'll come back to downward dog. I'm going to drop to hands and knees. Take some cat-cows. I want a more grounded practice today. And then from your downward dog, you'll lift your left leg. And same thing, opening up the hip. And on your next exhale, you're gonna step through between your hands, coming into that runner's lunge. Back knee is lifted, or it could be down. And taking a few breaths here, feeling into the hip a little bit before you start to drop that back heel down, rising to warrior two. And I'll take the grounded version once again. So finding that length, evening out, reaching through the fingertips. And we'll again find that sense of flow. So it might feel good to inhale, reach forward, exhale, reverse the warrior. Inhale back up to warrior two, lengthening out. And then again, exhale to reverse. Opening side body. Inhaling, rising back up. And then coming into triangle, so back heel comes in just a bit. Straighten that front leg, reach forward, and then extend down. Your hand comes inside the shin. Use that as leverage to peel open the ribs towards the ceiling. Gaze can be up, or you can work with your neck rolling up and down. Arm is straight above you or reaching towards the front wall. Mindful breathing here. And from triangle, you're going to start to put weight in that front foot. Hand might come to a block. And coming in, oops, sorry. Yeah, it's the trick of going backwards. And coming into your half moon. Kicking into the back heel and pressing down as you lift up. And then reaching towards the front wall with your head as you kick back into your heel. So you're kind of moving through all forms of energy here. Taking a few breaths for balance. Good, and then we'll slowly on an exhale step back to warrior two. Evening back out. Beautiful. And then cartwheel your hands down, back to that low lunge. And you can step back to your downward dog and move through a vinyasa. I'm just gonna take a few cat-cows. And from that downward dog, slowly walk towards the top of the mat. And you can start to rise up to standing. We're gonna be moving into tree pose, so it might feel good to actually look towards the camera now. And we're gonna show different versions. Let's go ahead and start with our standing leg being our left leg. So this one's gonna be standing, and then we're gonna bend this right knee. Open up the hip. So we did a lot of opening in our warrior two pose. From here, start to slide the foot up the leg. So roots are going down, and I'm guessing Yogi Bear's probably gonna take her foot all the way up above her knee. So coming into, you never wanna put the foot on the knee, a higher tree pose, and then start to grow your tree. So you can take palms, you can start to bring your arms up overhead, reaching tall. This could also be done against a back wall. And you could also have your foot sort of on the ground here. So it's whatever's comfortable for you, finding a focal point on something that's not moving, and then steady breath is the key to holding your balance, maybe finding flow. And if this pose is easy for you, you can always close your eyes. Then it gets really challenging. And we'll take one more big breath in, reaching full expression of the tree. And then just imagine you're letting go of something that no longer serves you as your leaves trickle down. And we'll come to the other side. So kind of shaking it out a little, moving, circling the hips. And we'll go towards the right leg as our standing leg, left knee bends, opening up the hip, sliding the foot up the leg to whatever is comfortable. Once you feel like you've rooted down and you're really grounded, you'll start to find your expression of tree. So whatever that feels for you. Sometimes it actually feels really good to press the palms together as you press your foot into your leg. You find this balance, like I said earlier, that those two opposing forces pressing together helps you find a sense of balance and stability. Finding that drishti or focal point and steady breath. Another deep breath in, and we'll start to just let it all go as your feet come down. Good job. All right. You feeling good now? You got the wiggles out and nice, it's like juicy movements. And now we'll come into some Yin postures. We'll be holding these for about 2 minutes each, some maybe a little less. Usually Yin is like 2 to 5 minutes. So anyway, you could hold these much longer and push pause if you'd like to. We're gonna start with a forward fold just to counteract that tree that we did. So you can come down onto your mat, feet are in front, and I'm gonna give you an option at home and here that you can either have just a regular forward fold or a wide-legged forward fold. So it's whichever you prefer to go for. And if you're maybe put this blanket under your knees, could feel good. In Yin, it's nice to have sometimes some support. So you're gonna wanna have some props like blankets or little towels. We have bolsters, but I would say you could use just pillows at home. Blocks could be books. You just want to have some things to help sort of hold you up and support you. And you may start with a prop and a pose, for example, and then soften to not needing it by the end. And the point when we come into some Yin postures is to find that sense of grounding, to feel all the parts of your body that are really rooted down onto the mat. So I'm noticing my heels, I'm noticing my sit bones here, and I'm gonna take maybe the blocks away, start to release down a little more. You could also have like a bolster, like Yogi Bear could have it underneath her torso, or I have like here to support myself. And have a nice steady breath. So thinking about that breathing pattern where we were inhaling for the count of 4 and exhaling for 4, and keeping our nervous system regulated, we're going to want to do that here as well. The breath is what's going to keep you focused on the pose and what's going to help you to release deeper into the pose. It also helps the mind stay more clear from random thoughts that start popping into the head. And I notice that as I'm breathing, I might be able to take that block away and get deeper. And this is where we start to really down-regulate the nervous system. And we start to put the brakes on the stress response. We find a sense of surrender. Think of what you can relax a little bit more in this pose. You may have an area that's kind of calling to you that feels like it's nagging a little bit. Can you invite your breath to move there? We'll take 2 more breaths in this pose, and we'll start to move into the next one. And we'll slowly start to rise back up. And then from here, we're gonna move into our runner's lunge and then into pigeon. So we'll be doing like runner's lunge into pigeon on one side and then same on the other. So I like to use props for this pose, like a block or even two. And let's go ahead and just bring your right leg forward. And this left leg, I'm going to recommend that the knee stays down for it, just because we're wanting to kind of release into it, and focus on bringing that right hip back a little. And then as you lower down, you may be on your hands here. You also may have your hands on a block. So if your hip flexors are super tight, this may be challenging. And you may notice that you toe heel out a little wider. And you start to just surrender down, and again, finding your breath. Yes, of course, she's going down onto forearms. You do not have to do that at home. So just knowing that wherever your flexibility takes you to, honor that and know that it's doing this practice that makes us flexible. None of us are born this way. Yogi Berra, as she mentioned, does yoga every day, and so she's going to be very flexible. But you're still going to get the benefits, whatever height you're at. I might start to bring my elbows down to a block. Nice smooth breath, and I like how she has her head supported on the block. It allows the back of her neck to release, finding a sense of balance and ease in this pose. And notice again what is calling to you. Most likely it's going to be right in here in the crease of your hip, maybe a little bit in the glute. And can you send a steady breath to that area, releasing tension? And can you surrender that little bit more? Maybe it's taking the block down a notch. Maybe it's simply smoothing out the breath. We're going to start to move into half pigeon. So the same leg that is forward, you're just going to toe heel the foot in. Release the knee down. And there's no need for this leg to get parallel to the front of the mat, as sometimes is cute. You can tuck it inward, and this back leg is going to be nice and long. And then, yeah, I like how you're opening the chest first, and then she's going to release down. And again, you can use any kind of props here. She might stay on her elbows. I might have a bolster or even prop that bolster up, or have two pillows, for example. Another thing you can do is support this back hip with a blanket, which you can't really see, but I have it right underneath my hip. We're just releasing, relaxing into the outer part of the hip now. Finding a steady, smooth breath. Noticing what feels grounded and what feels rooted in your body. Relaxing all the way up your straight leg towards your hips. Feeling the sense of tension that might be in that outer hip and trying to release it a little bit more through your breath. And coming back to those equal length inhales and exhales. So focusing simply on the quality of breath that's moving in and out to bring balance into your nervous system. We'll take 3 more breaths here. Finding that final sense of surrender and release into the pose. We'll slowly start to peel ourselves off the mat. And so as we're getting more into these grounded poses, we're going to move very slowly to switch sides. Almost like you're moving through honey or water. You might feel a little creaky as you got into those muscles and tissues a little bit deeper. You can do anything in between, like a few cat-cows before we go to the other side. Just moving your body organically, and then that right or your left leg will come forward, finding that low lunge. And once again, you'll kind of tuck into that left hip a little, opening up. Ooh, I just got a little crack. It's always nice. You may notice that you do get little pops and cracks, and that's always normal too. As we get deeper and allow the body to release, finding that sense of surrender, coming deeper into the pose. And I just come to my elbows. And releasing the neck. It is nice to have your head supported on something, and even if that means multiple blocks. And the same quality of breath. I always come back to some sort of pranayama or controlled breathing, like the equal length inhales and exhales, because it, as we know, regulates the nervous system, but it also just keeps the thoughts from creeping in. When we slow down in stillness, the body maybe can even tighten up because of what's happening inside the mind. So we want to release the thoughts and release with the breath. We'll take about 3 more breaths here before we move into our pigeon pose. And then we'll slowly start to rise up and toe heel this foot inward. Ooh, hips are feeling pretty juicy right now. And finding the support that you need. Yeah. Our hips often hold a lot of emotions for us, and so there's this thought that the issues are in our tissues, which just means that sometimes stored trauma and stress from when we don't complete the stress cycle tends to hide in different areas of our body, and it forms these energetic knots. And these knots, over time, they linger, they nestle themselves into certain areas, oftentimes the hips or the neck and the shoulders. We will find those stress spots. And so with Yin Yoga, when we spend a little extra time releasing and breathing into these areas, it's very common that like emotions can come up, or you may feel even agitated or not sure what's going on inside your body, but just be patient with it. Focus on the breath. Focus on that sense of grounding. Trust the process. And every time the mind floats on to something else, bring it back to this present moment. Bring it back to the sensations that you're feeling in your body. Being mindful of them, acknowledging them, not judging them, because trust us, even if you're getting deep into a pose, we're still feeling it pretty profoundly. And so all of those sensations are completely normal. And we'll focus on about 4 more breaths. Equal length inhales and exhales, releasing that little bit further if it feels at all possible. Finding that sense of surrender in body, in mind, and even reminding yourself of that intention. And we'll slowly start to rise back up. And we're going to come into butterfly on our backs. There's a few ways to kind of support this in yin, and you might not need them, but I'm going to show with you because there's some props. So we're going to do it through a heart opener that I'm going to put this right below your back. So it's going to go along your spine as you lay down. And then we can bring the soles of your feet together. And I'm going to put these blocks here. You can probably do the lower setting. Does that feel okay? And you could have the blocks at a higher setting. Another option is taking a blanket and putting it around your ankles, which keeps your knees a little bit more elevated as you lay back down. And I'm going to show you, like, if you had bolster and blocks at home, there's the option to kind of prop them up like this and begin more of an elevated butterfly too. So lots of options depending on what feels good for you. Allowing your heart to feel open. So there's a lot of openness going on in the chest and in the hips. Feeling a sense of grounding along the spine. Finding that sense of surrender. Always could be in just more of a forward fold butterfly too, if none of these are comfortable for you. So lots of options here. And this pose can be very restful for some people. It can feel vulnerable for others. It can feel too open, maybe not relaxing if the inner thighs and hips are tight. So lots of things could be coming up. I'm going to give Yogi Bear the option here to stay in this pose, or she can move into Shavasana at any point. So she may want to stay in it for a little bit longer as we move into more of our Yoga Nidra, deep relaxation. And then at some point she might come into Shavasana, which is our resting pose. Okay, good. You're gonna just relax and maybe keep the bolster behind the back. It feels good. And so as she starts to surrender her body completely into this corpse pose, which is kind of how we find this sense of renewal and rebirth, we're going to do a brief relaxation. We also have a deep relaxation meditation. It's in our mindful meditation playlist, so you can check that out. It's a little bit longer, like 20 minutes, involves a visualization, so you could do that. This one's going to be a little shorter, so start as your body comes into stillness, noticing how you feel after the movement and then more of the stillness from Yin Yoga. Noticing what you feel you liked about the practice and what felt natural for you versus what you didn't like. Knowing that sometimes the things that you disliked are the optimal ways of bringing yourself into balance, that you might need more of them. Notice where in your body you feel tension versus ease. And notice where you feel distraction versus presence. And what feels balanced in your body. And what feels balanced in your mind. And can you relax your toes one by one? Relax your ankles. And relax your lower legs, your knees, and the upper legs. Let your hips settle. Feel length and grounding in your spine, relaxing of the torso. Complete surrender in the shoulders, releasing tension on down through the arms, into the wrists, and each one of your fingers. Feel softening of your neck and the back of your head. And releasing of any tension you feel in your face, especially your jaw. Just allowing the teeth to part. Feel that quiet sensation of breath moving through the nose. As you focus simply on the breath and on that sense of surrender in your body, can you release your thoughts in the mind as much as well? And from this peaceful space where your body is completely relaxed and surrendered, we would invite you to stay here as long as is comfortable. Another 5 minutes, even 10, of complete relaxation could completely reset your nervous system. We're going to start to mindfully move fingers and toes and circulate the breath a little deeper to come out of the pose. Keeping that intention close to your heart. And then stretching in any way that feels organic and natural to reawaken. And slowly starting to roll onto one side, bending the knees, even taking a moment of pause here, that transition from this space into what comes next. Pressing yourself up with the weight of your palm, and coming to just a gentle seated position here. And as your hands come to heart center, you may even place one hand on your heart and the other hand on top, and take a few of those mindful, even inhales and exhales. Noticing if you feel balanced right now. And thinking about how you can start to prioritize more self-care in your life. Even if it's just some mindful breathing each day. You can do it before or after something that you do, like brushing your teeth or waking up, just so that you're intentionally tapping into a sense of balance and ease. We'll bring our palms together at heart center to seal our practice. Once again, feeling the balance between the right and the left side of our body as we press the palms together. Two opposite energies that leave us feeling balanced. And thank you so much for joining us, and namaste.